And she closes the door and locks it. And I'm like, okay, now we're stuck in this like 6x6 room with the washer and dryer. It's hot. To live this reality of another person's, struggle.
What is up, everybody? And welcome back to the Schooling Struggle Podcast. It is our belief that the only guarantee in life is that we're all going to struggle. And how we choose to embrace our struggles is what empowers us to become the best versions of ourselves. My name is Pete, coming to you from Hartland, Vermont, which has 0 stoplights, but 2 post offices. Is there any other town that has no stoplights and 2 post offices?
I don't
With
think
me is my friend and co-host Todd, coming to you from Tacoma, Washington. I don't know if there's anything unique or interesting about Tacoma that you might want to share with the folks, but figured I'd throw it out there.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I'm so curious why there's 2 post offices.
I lived here for 12 years and I have the same curiosity and I don't have an answer for you.
That's an interesting thing.
Speaking of interesting, this is going to be a little bit different episode in that Todd is taking the lead role here and he had some stuff that he wanted to drop that he was excited to share. So I am officially in the shotgun seat, not driving the bus.
Oh.
And I'm super thrilled for whatever it is that you're bringing tonight. What do we got? What do we got? What do we got?
I might drive it right off the cliff. Yay! Hopefully we're going to be better than yesterday at the end of this show. We're going to find out. You're going to get to see the inner workings of Todd's frantic mind. But in true schooling struggle fashion, last week we recorded what we called the prep-isode for compassion and self-compassion, something that I've been digging into a bit with books by Brene Brown and Dr. Kristen Neff. And I went away to my daughter's college graduation in the wonderful Tucson, Arizona this last weekend. Just got back this morning.
What's cool?
Arizona State or University of Arizona, one of those two. I can't remember, ASU or USA. I don't know what the one. Anyways, somewhere down there where it's really hot. They were having like record-breaking heat for there, and I was it was like 103, and there was all kinds of crazy things that happened there. So we did a prep-isode on self-compassion and compassion, which I failed to prep for. So that's why we called it the prep-isode, because I didn't do any prepping. And then this time I intended to do a whole bunch of re-listening to some of the works by those aforementioned ladies on the airplane, and then kind of come up with a twisting roadmap for us to follow. But what unfurled in front of me in real time was way more beneficial, I think, than anything that I could pull out of these books and try to conversate with you on this topic. So, you got anything to say before I unspool?
I was about to say, do share. I'm psyched.
So my daughter and I, so I'll try to keep the story part compressed so we can stay on focus. But my daughter, Caitlin, is 26 years old. So I am 20 years her elder. Myself and her mother were never married. And so she, Jocelyn, Jocelyn is her stepmother. So let's just get that out of the way real quick.
Jocelyn, your current wife.
Jocelyn, my only wife, is her stepmother. And there, with step parenting and the things that come with that, I think sometimes there are definitely difficulties throughout both sides of that equation, the parenting side and the actual the biological parenting side, the step parenting side, and then as well as that child themselves, and then in the context of a family that adds another layer of step brothers, step sisters, those things, right? So most of Caitlin's life, we had a parenting plan, which allows visitation on, every other weekend and certain holidays and all these different things. And so up until she was 18, those things unfolded, and she would come over, she was kind of like a part-time daughter, if you will, a part-time sister, to the kids. And we included her in everything that we could, to the point where we were able to, for the time that she was with us. And so, that went on for her entire life. And however that directed her path on her life, I can't know for sure, but definitely it's had an influence on the way that she's been brought up. So it was her graduation, and we flew down there Friday morning, arrived in Tucson at around 10:30 in the morning. And so I had intended the entire time to kind of be reserved. Her mom was going to be there, and her, that other side of her family, as well as her husband, some of his family. And so I was just like, I'm there for my support, for your support, and if you want to go out, hang out or whatever, I'll be here. But I'm going to get a rental car. I'm going to go Airbnb. We're going to be segregated off in this different area and that's not typically how we go. So typically it's I'll go down there myself, or Jocelyn will go down there herself, and we'll, sleep at their house, and we'll play with the kids and like all these different things. And this time it was different in that way. And so I wasn't sure. Go ahead.
So, two questions. One, do you interact with her mother regularly anymore, or no?
No, hardly ever.
Okay.
Definitely not since she was 18. So once child support was done, we don't really.
And this past weekend, it was just you and Jocelyn that went, or any of your other kids?
No, just Jocelyn and I.
Okay.
Yep. And so the boys stayed home. And so we got down there, and that's kind of how that played out. So in retrospect, I could have communicated that a bit better, and I didn't. And I've just kind of let it play out. We'll see what happens, right? So seating starts at the stadium for the graduation to begin at around 5:30, I think. And, it's hot and there's a whole bunch of people. And so, we get there, I don't know, maybe 6:15 or something like that. And so we get a good spot in the stands. There's Caitlin. I can see her down on the field. So they have like a huge stage erected in the center. And then you can imagine stadium seating, and it's down on the football field. And so
it's in the stadium that the football team plays.
Absolutely.
It's like D1 football stadium.
Yeah, it's giant. It's a huge complex, right?
Yep.
And so we see her, and we're like, yeah, hooray. But she's down on the field, and they don't allow anybody down there except for those who are graduating. So you just had to kind of yell from the stands or whatever. So we sat up there for a little bit. And as I watched this thing unfold, so this is where it really gets interesting for me. So I've been to high school graduations, not my own, but I've been to plenty. And I've watched how, like, in my mind, and the assumption was, there's 4,000 people on this field that are graduating, and this is going to take hours of time for them to get through this, right? Like if it's the same as a high school graduation. So I'm sitting, next to my wife in the stands, and we're like, I don't know, maybe 12 rows up from the field. All of a sudden, all of these teachers come on, or all the professors, and they start talking about themselves. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, like this, you're just dragging this thing out. And then I get into you don't have to go to college.
You're fitting to get ready for 4,000 names.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's after all this happens, right? So I'm just building this story in my head about how long this is going to take. And now I'm getting irritated.
Expectations.
So there's this lady in front of me, and she's there with her husband and maybe a couple of her kids, and she's cheering on people, I don't even know. There's something going on in the stands, and she's like clapping for him, and her husband turns to him and she's like, do you know that kid? She's like, no, I just think that's a great story. And so he's shaking his head like, oh my God, this is going to take forever. And so all these things start building on me. Right. And so I said, okay, I'm going to wait till 8:30. Like, this is like, it starts at 7:30. I'm going to wait till 8:30. And if they're not done talking with their whole thing to polish the school, right? Basically, like, then I'm just going to leave. I'm done. I'm not going to sit here for that long. And so that time came and went, and I was like, okay, I'm out of here. And so Caitlin is down on the field, and, she's looking up every once in a while. And then I get a picture of her with the mascot and all these other things. And then we're on our way back to the hotel, or back to the Airbnb. And I get a message from her, and it says, where'd y'all go? With a question mark. And I'm like, well, we left. Like, I didn't need to be here for this. I went to your high school graduation. Like, this is cool for you, and I'm here to support you. But, I don't need to watch 4,000 people walk. And at this point, I didn't know that this wasn't going to happen, right? And so I had this weird feeling like, like I led to earlier, like I could have communicated a bit better, like the fact that I was leaving, or, and all these things had just happened to me in real time, and I was hot, and I had a headache, and I'm like, I'm just leaving. So I left, get out of the car, I head home, whatever. This terrible headache, and I'm thinking to myself, Jesus, like I probably got on the plane and now I'm gonna have the COVID. Anyway, so I just let it go. Like, I went to bed, didn't let anything happen. And then the next day was her party with her friends, and all of our families came together at her house to celebrate, at 2:00, the fact that this thing had gone on. And so I slept, I woke up at 8:00 in the morning, and I had this raging headache, and I'm like, oh my God. And so I go back to sleep till 10. I get up, and I'm like, man, we got to eat some breakfast. So Jocelyn makes breakfast, blah, blah, blah. 2:00 approaches, and I'm like, okay, well, let's go over here and do this thing. So we stop at the store, get some beer, get some flowers, everything's going to be fine. And I get there, and it's like, kind of like a reunion. Like, oh, I haven't seen your mom for, probably a decade, and maybe not that long, but a long time. And her dad was there. So Caitlin's grandpa on the other side, I haven't seen him for a very long time. And then my cousin was there from Phoenix, and there's like all these different people that I haven't seen, in a very long time. And so, you're meeting friends and blah, 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 interacting. And then pretty soon Caitlin's like, oh, come over here, check out this garage or whatever. And her garage is right next to this very small laundry room. And we go in the laundry room and she shuts the door. And I'm like, what's going on? And it had started because they were talking about my mom. And so my mom's failing memory and her failing health is something that drives Caitlin, like she's very sad about it and she doesn't want her grandma to die, right? And I get it. And so she starts with, like, why couldn't it be somebody else, that's that sick or blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you can't, like, you're not going to be able to change that. So there's no sense pondering like, and I kind of just sloughed it off. And then she pulls me in there and cause I had tried to leave and then I came back in there and she's like, we got to have a conversation about something. And I'm like, okay. And she says, closes the door, locks it. And I'm like, okay, now we're stuck in this like 6x6 room with a washer and dryer. It's hot already in there. AC had went out. So I'm like, oh, this is
You are
awkward.
in, Dad.
Yeah.
You are in it.
I'm in the thick of things now, right? A very long time ago, Caitlin told us one time, Jocelyn and myself, that every time she came to our house, she felt like displaced, like a cat in the corner is what she said. Like you throw down a blanket on the corner and the cat lays on the blanket, and that's how I feel. And awkward enough coming from a 12-year-old, but I can understand that. Like, you don't really live here. You don't have a room here per se. Like you just come and go. And then, we go on with our lives, you go on with yours. And all of these things that started coming out of her mouth started adding up to the point where I could tell she was at a tipping point of something. And it all came back to, and this is where this is the glory, I think, of your and I happenstance collaboration on this thing and how it's kind of been having this ripple effect in ways that I hadn't really found until this thing happened. And she's like, you go on this podcast and you talk about these things and, you're supportive of other people and you're supportive of the way that you hope that you can inspire them to grow. But I don't feel that way. And I'm like, oh man, like I've always had a very hard time connecting with my feelings. Like if somebody says, bring to mind, a feeling where, you were angry or you were sad or something like that. And as I was reading about all this stuff about self-compassion, like I could see that gap in myself. And I'm like, yeah, there's something here for me to learn. I don't know what exactly it is. Right. And so when this started unfolding in front of me, obviously she shook up and she's crying in the corner, right? When she starts crying, well, I start crying, right? But it wasn't until I realized that I'm actually living the compassionate moment here. And if you have to bring it to mind, I can't bring that to mind. But now I'm forced in this 6x6 room to live this reality of another person's, struggle, my own included. And now where are those two things going to meet? And so I was like, wow, I'm never going to get another situation. Like never has one been brought to the forefront in such a way that was so pertinent to what I had been looking at. And then
Good
I'm
for
like,
her. I admire her bravery.
oh man, that's the first thing I wrote down. So as
I
I
would
was
think that'd
looking,
be
like,
one of the hardest people to talk to are the
oh,
the closest to us or the closest in our family or blood or however you want to say it. But yeah,
and to be raw,
that's
like,
amazing for
yeah,
her. Yeah,
And so
yeah,
I wrote
admire
down when
that.
I was doing this, the number one thing was the cat in the corner. The number 2 point that I was wanting to make was the manifestation of it, right? So she brought together eloquently all of these points, and it's like at this time, and then she centered around, where did y'all go? And I was like, I knew when you said that, like something had pissed you off or something had shifted, right? Like, and she's like, and then that's when the unload came. She's like, my entire life I felt this way. And then like on a day where I've done all these things, I look up there and you're gone. And I'm just like, oh. So then next one came the courage and awareness. Like there's no way that like obviously she thought about it, right? And she's going to trap me in this room and we're going to have this conversation. And then fourth point was tenacity and vulnerability. Like those two things together, like you were saying, it's hard enough to confront, somebody in your immediate family or somebody, your parent or something about something that's so awkward for you, in a way that you have to be completely vulnerable in order to share it and then get it out. And so I thought that compassion that I had to feel for her as a parent, and likewise, she probably felt it for me watching me completely break down. But then we had like this great conversation about what that meant and like how we could be better and what her expectation was of me and how I was failing and how I could be better in how I was showing up for her. And like all these things they just came together, and her friends are knocking on the door, like, we're leaving. And she's like, you're just gonna have to wait. She just keeps shutting the door. And it was just like, it just continued going on. But it was so interesting for me, especially to know that this podcast has had not only profound impact on the way I look at things through some of the perspectives that you share, but now it's come to a point where it changes her perspective on how I'm viewed based on the things that I say or the things that I do and say or hope to do and say in a way or in a forum that is more public than I might have thought. So I remember at the beginning when we started this, I thought, it would be cool if my kids could finally understand how I felt about things, because I'm very unprepared or very uncomfortable sharing them with them in real time. And now that's come full circle. So like it was unbelievable. So I also want to thank you for that, because I would have never had that opportunity before, or it would have been one that I would have constantly ran away from. And now I can no longer, like, it's now it's part of my lived experience, and I have to do better than yesterday, right? I actually have to do better in her eyes, and I feel like in everybody else's, whoever listens to this, or at least my family, like, I hope they will see it as an attempt to do things better and have that awareness that these are the things that we talk about when we talk about schooling struggle, right?
So I'm listening to you tell the story, and as you're telling it to me, and I didn't know anything about it, you just said,
"Yep,
I'll tell you about my weekend when we hit record." I'm thinking in my head, as you're telling me the story, Todd, don't leave the graduation. Don't leave. Don't leave.
Yeah.
If you have to sit there for 4 to 6 to 8 hours, you flew down there to do that. Like, don't leave. And then you're like,
do it.
And I left. And I'm thinking to myself, you got to do the uncomfortable thing. And the uncomfortable thing was to physically sit in that space and listen to people talk about something you weren't interested in.
Interesting.
Because it was the right thing to do.
Yeah. But
that's the way my mind was thinking. And I would never even consider not staying for the entire thing.
That's so interesting.
It wouldn't even cross my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a very hard time relating to that, being like, you flew all the way down there to see your daughter. She obviously put herself, or someone put her through school while she was raising kids. And that's like a really cool thing. And I'm like, don't leave as you're telling me the story.
Yeah. It's probably some of the hardest things anybody could ever do, and then I just left, and I was just so tied up.
The reason why you left?
I was just so tied up in my own, I don't even know, like, it was just my own irritation of the entire situation. Like, I don't know, like there was more things that added to it. Like, I'm like at work, I do all this culture work, right? And it's like equity and, equality and all these different things. And as I'm watching this huge Megatron, you can imagine the football stadium, right? They have, the talking head of whoever it is, the dean of students, right? And then on a lower screen, way down in the corner where you can't see anybody is, the ASL interpreter. And it's like, what are we doing? Like, why are we doing this here? And why do I have to watch this? So those things just added to it. But
I just think, like, if you had texted me in real time from there, like, hey, I'm thinking about leaving, like, should I go? I would like just unload this laundry list of, this is not about you. This is not about the people that are speaking. You said you flew down there to show support. This is how you show support. Yeah, that's just, but that's so I actually have a really difficult time fully understanding with empathy when you say, I just don't, I can't feel it. I don't feel it. Whereas I think, and I've said this before, but our greatest strength is our greatest weakness. I think I feel very passionate about so much. Like my class is ruined if I have 20 kids that are totally on point and loving everything that I'm doing for the lesson plan that day, and there's one that's off. And my mom carries that burden of the one person in the room or the one person at the party who's not having a good time. Like, that's where I focus. And I'm not saying that that's exactly an apples to apples comparison.
Sure.
But I just have a hard time understanding when you say that. So, and I am just so incredibly grateful for the openness that you've shared on this platform. There's a lot of stuff that I have not shared. So
the funny part about that is, like, I've been corroding them for so long. This is now my opportunity to do better. So, like, we're complete opposites in many ways.
Well,
that's another.
I might contend that that's not entirely true, because, like, so my wife does not listen to this podcast. It's not anything against us. Maybe it's against me. She just doesn't listen to podcasts. Like, it doesn't fit into her day. For her, a podcast doesn't fit anywhere into what she does. And she's tried. She's just like, just to make time for it. It doesn't flow well. But I often think it would be nice if she did, because then there would be this accountability piece. Like, I can sit here and spout off and say to you, oh, I'm working on this, or I'm trying to be better here. And she could get on this thing and go, no, I don't see that. You may say to these people that are listening that you're making growth here, you're trying to be better here, but I don't see it in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. So it's kind of it's interesting in that regard. And obviously people are listening from your end. When you and I are talking, I often think that it's just the two of us talking, but we record this and we share it for a reason. And my reason is because I love to share what I'm learning, and it's just a really powerful thing. And so from my end, the way it all played out was last Monday, you're like, hey, I should be back next Monday to record, but I am going down to Arizona. So if there's any flight problems or whatever, that might interrupt it, but I'm pretty sure I'll be back from Monday. No worries. So then I get a couple of texts from you over the week, and just kind of our regular interaction. And then you share with me in a very kind of short text format that you had a really powerful moment with your daughter. And I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know if that was a negative thing, a positive thing, if the podcast was over because of it. I had no idea, and then, but you said it was a gift. And at that point I knew no matter what the struggle was, or no matter what the thing was, that you're viewing it as a chance to learn from it, grow from it, and strive to be better going forward.
Yeah.
And that sounds like it's exactly what happened. And now I'm giving you my thoughts on this. You may see your fathering skills or your parenting as, a laundry list of shortcomings, or, the ways that you've talked about in the past, but your willingness to stay in that room, to listen, to not be defensive, and to take that struggle, embrace it. And now it's up to you what you want to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that intention and the awareness is there. The intention is there. Now it's about the action.
Yeah. Interesting part is I didn't know it was coming. That's the best part. It was just thrust upon me like, oh, guess you better do it. You better do something with this, or else what the hell are you going to do? You can't run, right? So
how did, if you can carry on with the story. So you were in the room, people are banging on the door saying, hey, we got to go. And she said to her friends, hold on.
Yep.
So take me through the next couple of moments.
So then we just went through different scenarios because I wanted to know more about why she felt that way. Like were there specific instances that, other than, where'd y'all go? Are there other instances that I should have been aware of, or maybe that I had missed? Right. And so, I mean, she's got an entire lifetime of things that I've probably done wrong. And she, she's like, here you go. And so, in the end, it ultimately came down to, a point of reflection for me that, and ownership. Like I'm sorry that you feel that way because of the things that I have or have not done. Like, but I can't change those things. Right. And so I think that, we figured out like this is the way life goes, and how can it be better from here on out? And if there's times where those feelings aren't being met, or something along those lines, like we now have an open channel to just call BS and be like, what are we going to do about this? Right. Because this is not the way I feel like it should be going, and then have a conversation. So before, all these things had just been stacking, for decades. I mean, we've had conversations before, but never a conversation that deep. And then now I feel like now we have a path forward together, as opposed to, just parallel tracks. So, yeah.
So I'm asking a question, and you can refrain from answering it, and
Sure.
we can edit it out if you'd like.
Uh-huh.
But I'm just curious. This is a really cool thing for me to hear. So after this moment, this shift, this conversation, this interaction, what are you going to do now? Like, not just, when the next thing comes along, but like, are there any proactive measures that you're going to take starting right after that conversation that weren't in place before?
I mean, I can't say for certain that I can see proactive stuff. I mean, being more supportive obviously is quite a vast term, but I think, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Like, I would like to think I would, but I don't know exactly what those steps would be. She talked about, and I couldn't put a pin on it. I couldn't remember you said it, but there was a time that you went to Australia. Did you do that when you were out of college or something like that?
Yeah.
And what did you do? What did you do there? Just moneyed around?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, when Peter I remember hearing Peter's story about when he went to Australia, and how you were like, oh, that's so cool, you blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, but that would have been cool. Like, I mean, that would be cool to just go to Australia and hang out. And she's like, yeah, but why isn't it cool if I want to go do something like that at the same time? Like, why is there such a split of difference between, you're saying that's cool in reflection of somebody else's story being told, but when she wants to do something of that nature, I don't think it's cool. And I was like, I mean, obviously there's a whole host of other things that are inside that. You're my daughter, you got grandkids, but it's just like, it made me step back and think, I don't know why I don't even realize that I did that. I was like, I don't even think Peter ever went to Australia. And she's like, oh, he went to Australia. And I was like, I don't remember that story, but I don't really know Peter that well. And she's like, go back and listen. I was like, she just kept blowing my mind with all these things about the podcast. And I was thinking to myself, either you're a complete fraud because you don't even remember the things that you're saying, or like other people are picking up these things and now they're holding you accountable. It's like you said, you have to be held accountable for those things. And it never was so blatantly thrust into my face as it was with her conversation. But she's coming up here in a couple of weeks, and she's driving she bought this like a mini motorhome tiny house thing, and she's driving up here with the grandkids, and then she's going to go, I don't know what she's going to stay at different places or go, I don't know what her big plan is, but she's like, why can't you just be supportive of that? And I was like, I mean, there's a whole host of things wrapped up in that, but I could be more supportive of that. So I guess that's what I'll do. I think what will result is I will be more open and communicative with her to try to figure out if I can dull the edge of some of those things that have resulted in her feeling this way over that amount of time.
That's cool.
Yeah. I don't know if it'll work, but that's what I'm going to try.
I'm not insinuating in any way that you strike me as a person who needs to be right. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I feel that with your level of introspection, you don't strike me as someone who's being right. But for all of my younger years, like all my years up to my mid-20s, being right was important to me. And
like know it all right, or just I'll prove you wrong.
Like I'll argue this till I'm blue in the face,
even if you know it's wrong.
Right? Yeah, because I'm very competitive and I don't want to be outdone and the whole deal. And before I got married, my boy Keith, what's up, Keith? And yes, you're coming on the podcast because your story is amazing. You told me that it's more important to be loving than to be right in a marriage, and in a way, I think this could speak to what we're talking about. Because my dad and both my parents, but particularly my dad, who didn't show a ton of emotional, outward emotion toward us, except when he was pissed off growing up. When I told him, hey, I'm going to go to Australia and New Zealand for 2 months. Hey, I'm going to ride my bike across the country. Hey, I'm going to go to Brazil. Hey, I'm going to go to these other things. It was he was really upset with me. He resisted it. And
was that the story where you said, "Don't ask me for money"? Was that story?
Well, that's the story of my whole life.
No, but was that the point? Was that the time you said that? You were like, "I'm going to do all these things." He's like, "Whatever, don't ask me for money," or was that a different?
That was after I graduated college.
Okay.
I'm like, "Hey, I'm going to go be a ski bum and live out the back of my truck." Okay. He's like, "You do whatever you want as long as you don't ask me for money," and that was always the rule.
Okay.
So I traveled the world, but that has been such an amazing piece of verbiage for me in a marriage, as a parent, and as a teacher. It's better to be loving than to be right. Because I say to my students, you don't look at someone and go, oh my gosh, you know what I absolutely love about that person? They're always freaking right. They're so right all the time. I respect them so, like, you don't hear that ever. But you do hear often, you know what I love about that person? They're incredibly kind. They are so kind. So it's like, do I want to be looked at the person that's right, or do I want to be looked at as the person that is caring?
Yeah.
And that's been helpful. And I think as a parent, because we worry about our kids' safety and we worry about other things, it's easy to be like, well, don't do that. That's a bad idea. Like my daughter's really into frogging right now, and we don't want her to go down. We have a couple ponds on our property. We don't want her to go down by the pond unless she has adult supervision. And she's like, well, I want to go catch frogs. I'm like, well, not right now. I got to do this. You got to do that. And she's like, well, I'm going to go. And I'm like, no, you're not going to go. And like, at some point you just need to say, all right, Pete, let go of your stuff. And she wants to go frogging, like go watch her frog. I'm sharing this because it's happened in real time. It happened yesterday. She's just in a frogging phase. And it's more important for me to meet her where she's at that point in her life than to be right and to say, well, you shouldn't be frogging right now, or you shouldn't ride your bike cross country right now. And where is the line on that? As parents, I don't know. I do not want my daughter to do 90% of the stuff that I did in my 20s. I don't want her to go to all these things that I did. I won't list them all, but
but there's no way you can stop that, right?
Right. So how can you embrace it? How can you embrace it? You know? All my life, if my parents said, oh, that crap music, that ear pollution, that they call it the rap crap. If they just sat down and listened to one Wu-Tang song with me and tried to understand the lyrics, which they never would, but if they tried, like how much that would mean. So I'm like, and my mom did a ton of that kind of stuff in her own way. And my dad did too. He's really in the stock market. So we talk about the stock market, which is awesome. But to see the effort from a parent being like, and as a kid being like, well, my parent doesn't agree with me, but they're still going to support me is a really, really, really cool thing.
Yeah.
Like, I know my dad is sitting up in that stadium and it's the last thing in the world that he wants to do is sit there, but he stuck it out through the entire ceremony. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, can't go back on that one, but no, that's sound advice. Like I never really, because a lot of the points she was making were things that as a parent, you're just like, that's just a terrible, terrible idea. Like, don't do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, I don't want to say, but I'm going to say it anyways, because
but
when you're a parent of older children, they're adults. And even if they're, financially free, like they do, they're doing the thing that they, that's giving them success. It's giving them joy. It's giving them all these things. They still ask you for advice. If you don't answer with how you really feel, then there's there's a friction there. There's a rub, because it's either then I internally think to myself, well, I didn't tell her what I thought just to cherry coat this, you know what I mean? Instead of maybe now's not the right time to go frogging. You know what I mean? So there's like this weird, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's what I bounce up against that often. It's like you're asking me for my advice. I'm not going to just tell you something that is going to make you feel better, because people aren't just going to do that in your life, you know? So I don't know.
What I'm trying to do, and the more I listen and edit these podcasts, the more I realize how much I'm failing at this, is I want to be a person, and this is where I have so much learning curve and so much ground to make up and so much room for improvement, is I want to ask more questions than statements I make. We have a family member who just is going through a tough breakup. And this person came over for dinner last night, and I'm like, all right, Pete, just ask a lot of questions. And 30 minutes into it, I hear myself going about school and struggle and all these things. And like, I want to provide all the answers. I want to be the solution guy. And like, as a parent, I'm just trying to be like, all right, how many questions can I ask? How many relevant questions can I ask? Because even if you don't agree with the person, or you don't see it that way, the more questions you ask, the more value that person feels. And it's really helpful.
Always asking questions that that allow people to think in their own mind about different ways through, and not being like quick to, it's probably the same for teaching. You just don't want to be quick to give somebody an answer. You'd rather them think through the problem themselves and then come up with a tool. Yeah.
I started to make that shift in my 20s. I had a job serving tables, and the guy who worked for us was a really, really hothead. And he was this guy, he was probably 4 feet 8 inches. He was as wide as he was tall. His face was beat red all the time. I think his resting heart rate must have been $175. For those that don't have any reference, or a healthy resting heart rate is in the 50s. So this guy's resting heart rate is 175. And when you saw him coming, you just went somewhere.
Powder keg.
Nobody wanted to be around him. He was just not a happy guy. He was brought into this restaurant. I didn't want to be there. And one day, he was like working in his office, all huffing and puffing and upset. And I went into his office and sat down, and I said, "You mind if I ask you a couple questions?" He's like, "No." And I just started asking him about his life story. And that dude fell in love with me. Like, we were just boys after that, because I think he realized for a moment, like, somebody cares enough to ask. And that completely shifted. For me, that was a life-changing moment, because I was like, all I have to do to really connect with someone is to sit down and ask. And as a extrovert, when someone, or maybe as a selfish person, I guess, as a selfish extrovert, when someone sits down and asks me questions about myself, I love to answer them. Like, it
everybody
feels good.
Loves that.
Yeah, because it's like they value me enough to ask. So that's what I'm striving to do as a parent, is when I'm having a moment, to try to be like, all right, Pete, just ask a question. Just ask a question. Just ask a question. And I don't know if this is going to lead me where I'm trying to get with it, but I think it's better than what I have been doing, which is just share my opinion, share my opinion.
I like that. I'm gonna check back with me next week on that. I'll try that, see how that works out, because I think I could use that in a lot of different places, and where I usually am just like, spill something out of my mouth and move along. It can be better.
Part of the reason why I asked the question about, like, do you have anything in place going forward with your daughters, just because I am such an objective, tangible dude, I try to find ways, like, I make sure my hygienist gives me a rating at the end of each dental visit. Like, hey, what did I get out of 10? And I need to know, like, all right, you gave me an 8 this time. I got an 8, get an 8 or higher next time. And like, my thought was, all right, Todd, maybe you can set something up with your daughter where you make sure that you talk on Sundays, or you text her at least X amount of times a week or a month, just to stay in touch. And then when something is important, that that you guys will have a pact that you'll reach out right away and you won't let anything fester. Like, that's where my mind goes with this conversation. Yeah. And again, like, I don't want to be the guy who's telling everybody what to do, but like, there's a piece of me that wants to provide a solution for everyone. And that's tricky.
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that. That gives me food for thought, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I truly want to thank you for your openness and your honesty with all this. And Caitlin, you're awesome for making that happen. I really, really want to give you kudos for having the bravery, and I admire you for having that conversation with someone that was probably a really, really difficult and challenging thing to do. But hopefully that things will stem better from it going forward.
Yeah, I think so. Cool. Love you, Kate. Hope you listen.
All right. Whew. Thanks for sharing a moment with us, everybody. Good stuff.
Magical
Well,
Mondays.
Magical Mondays. We so very much appreciate your ears. We thank you for your time. We're grateful for your attention. And with that said, School and Struggle Podcast. We are out.
See ya.